Once upon a time, in the serene town of Owerri in Imo State, there lived a dedicated nurse named Chidinma. She was a gentle soul, known for her kindness and passion for caring for the sick. Chidinma was just 25 when she met Obinna, a charismatic young man from Anambra State. Obinna was everything Chidinma had dreamed of: charming, attentive, and ambitious. They met at a community event, and sparks flew almost instantly. Before long, they were inseparable, and within a year, they were married in a grand ceremony that brought together families and friends from both states. 2 years into their marriage, Chidinma received an opportunity of a lifetime, a visa to work as a nurse in the United Kingdom. The couple was ecstatic. It was their dream to start a new life abroad, where opportunities seemed endless. Chidinma promised Obinna that she would get settled and invite him over soon. True to her word, Chidinma worked hard, saved every penny, and within a year, she was able to send for Obinna. Their reunion in the UK was filled with joy and renewed dreams. The couple eagerly hoped to start a family, but as the months turned into years, no child came. Doctors assured them both were healthy, and there was no medical reason for their childlessness. Chidinma clung to her faith, praying and hoping that God would bless them with a child in His time. But everything changed on a chilly evening in January. Chidinma was preparing dinner when she noticed Obinna had left his phone on the kitchen counter. It buzzed with a message notification. Out of curiosity, she glanced at the screen. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the name Adaora. Something in her gut told her to open the chat, even though she knew it was wrong. What she saw shattered her world. Obinna had been chatting with Adaora, a woman back in Nigeria. He was promising her that he would not get Chidinma pregnant because he was taking something to prevent it. He mentioned that he was just waiting for his residency documents to be approved before he would divorce Chidinma and bring Adaora over to the UK. Chidinma felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Her hands trembled, and tears blurred her vision. She could barely breathe. Chidinma's mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? How could Obinna betray her like this? She had loved him, trusted him, and brought him into her world in the UK. Now, he was planning to discard her like an old shoe. Chidinma knew she had to act fast. She could not let Obinna's betrayal go unpunished. But what should she do? Should she confront him? Should she tell the UK Home Affairs that she no longer supports his residency application? She was torn between her love for him and the searing pain of betrayal. She decided to seek advice. She spoke to her closest friends and even consulted a lawyer. Some advised her to confront Obinna immediately and tell him she knew his secret. Others suggested she quietly withdraw her support for his documents without alerting him. Chidinma realized she needed a plan that would ensure Obinna and his side chick, Adaora, paid for their deceit. She wasn't going to let them walk away without consequences. Her heart was pounding with a mix of fear and determination. What should Chidinma do next? How should she make sure Obinna's plans fall apart? She knew there was no turning back. What will her next move be? Chidinma took a deep breath and wiped away her tears. She decided to act carefully and not let her emotions cloud her judgment. She had a few days before Obinna's documents would be processed by the UK Home Affairs, and she needed to move swiftly and smartly. The next morning, Chidinma put on a brave face and carried on as if nothing was wrong. Obinna noticed nothing out of the ordinary, still believing he was in control of the situation. Chidinma, however, began to gather evidence. She saved screenshots of his chats with Adaora, making sure to keep every message that exposed his deceitful plans. She also went through their joint accounts and found out that Obinna had been siphoning money into a separate account, a secret stash, perhaps to fund Adaora's relocation to the UK once his documents were approved. Armed with this evidence, Chidinma reached out to a trusted lawyer. She explained her predicament and asked for advice on how to ensure Obinna's documents would be denied without raising suspicion. The lawyer, an experienced immigration specialist, listened carefully. After some thought, he suggested a course of action. Chidinma, he began, if you can prove that Obinna's intentions are fraudulent, you could report this to the Home Affairs Office. However, if you do so openly, there's a chance it could drag you into a messy legal battle. A more subtle approach might be better. The lawyer proposed that Chidinma write an anonymous letter to the UK Home Affairs, detailing the suspicious activity and including evidence of Obinna's plans to divorce her once his documents were approved. The letter would express concern about possible immigration fraud and request a thorough investigation before any decision was made. Chidinma felt a flicker of hope. This plan would allow her to protect herself while ensuring Obinna's treachery did not go unpunished. She decided to take the lawyer's advice and immediately began crafting the letter, carefully choosing her words to convey both suspicion and concern. She included copies of the screenshots, bank transfers, and all other evidence she had gathered. 3 days later, Chidinma sent the letter to the UK Home Affairs Office, using a private courier to ensure it reached the right hands without delay. Now all she could do was wait. During this time, she continued to act as if nothing was amiss. She laughed at Obinna's jokes, cooked his favorite meals, and even planned a small celebration for when his documents would supposedly arrive. Obinna, oblivious to her actions, remained in high spirits, believing that he was just days away from his big break. Then, the twist came. A week later, Obinna received a letter from the Home Affairs Office. He eagerly tore it open, expecting to see his approved residency status. Instead, his face fell. The letter was a formal notice informing him that his application had been flagged for further investigation due to concerns over potential fraud. His heart raced, and for the first time, panic flashed across his face. Chidinma pretended to be concerned. "What's wrong, Obinna?" she asked, her voice soft and innocent. Obinna swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. "It's nothing. Just some bureaucratic nonsense," he lied, crumpling the letter in his fist. But Chidinma could see the fear in his eyes. She knew her plan was working. Over the next few weeks, things began to unravel for Obinna. The Home Affairs Office contacted him multiple times, asking for additional documents and explanations about his financial transactions and personal relationships. He grew more anxious, snapping at Chidinma and spending long hours on the phone with his lawyer. Meanwhile, Adaora, back in Nigeria, grew impatient. She began demanding answers from Obinna, questioning why his plans were taking so long. She threatened to expose him to Chidinma if he didn't fulfill his promises soon. Obinna was trapped. His perfect plan was crumbling before his eyes. He tried to reassure Adaora, but she was relentless, her messages becoming more frantic and angry. One evening, Chidinma overheard Obinna on the phone, his voice strained and desperate. "Adaora, please, just give me a little more time. The Home Affairs is being difficult. I promise I'll sort it out," he pleaded. But Adaora wasn't buying it. She had her own plans. She decided to take matters into her own hands. The next twist was about to unfold. Chidinma waited patiently, her heart heavy but resolute. She knew she was on the brink of something big, but she also knew she had to stay calm and let the pieces fall where they may. Would Adaora make a rash move that would expose everything? Or would Obinna find a way to wriggle out of the mess he had created? Chidinma had one more card up her sleeve. Should she play it now or wait for the perfect moment? She felt a surge of courage and determination. What would her next step be? Chidinma decided to bide her time, knowing that the best moves are made with patience. Meanwhile, the tension in their home grew thick enough to cut with a knife. Obinna became more erratic by the day. His usual confidence was replaced by nervous pacing and hushed phone calls that seemed to last forever. One morning, Chidinma received an unexpected call from a woman who introduced herself as Ngozi. "Hello, are you Chidinma?" the woman asked, her voice tense. Chidinma hesitated, wondering who this could be. "Yes, I am. Who is this?" she replied cautiously. "I'm Ngozi, Adora's cousin. I think you need to know what's been happening," Ngozi continued. She went on to explain that Adaora had recently discovered that Obinna was not only promising her a new life in the UK, but had also been secretly seeing another woman in London. Adaora, feeling betrayed and furious, had shared everything with Ngozi and was now threatening to expose Obinna herself. Chidinma felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of her wanted to laugh at the irony. Obinna's web of deceit was finally collapsing in on itself. But another part of her felt a pang of sympathy for Ngozi, who seemed genuinely concerned. "Thank you, Ngozi," Chidinma said after a moment. "I appreciate you letting me know, but trust me, I have my plans in place. Obinna won't get away with this." Ngozi sounded relieved. I just wanted to warn you, Adaora is unpredictable, and I don't know what she might do next. Be careful, okay? Chidinma thanked her again and hung up. She now realized that the time was right to play her final card. She contacted her lawyer and laid out a new plan. Together, they prepared a formal complaint to the UK Home Affairs, stating that she no longer supported Obinna's application and that he had lied about their relationship to obtain his residency. She attached all the evidence she had collected, including screenshots of his chats, bank statements, and even a recording of his recent call with Adaora. To make matters worse for Obinna, Chidinma decided to leak some of this information anonymously to a few immigration-focused online forums. The story quickly caught fire. Soon, whispers about Obinna's fraudulent activities spread across the internet, drawing attention from various immigration officials and advocacy groups. Just as Chidinma expected, Obinna was soon called in for a formal interview at the Home Affairs office. He walked in, thinking he could charm his way through as always. But this time, he was met with stern faces and a thick dossier of evidence laid out in front of him. "Mr. Obinna," the officer began, "we have reason to believe that you've been involved in immigration fraud and deception. Would you care to explain these communications and transactions?" Obinna's face went pale. He stammered, trying to spin his usual web of lies, but the evidence was overwhelming. The interview was a disaster for him. He left the office with his heart pounding, his mind racing with thoughts of escape. But deep down, he knew the walls were closing in. Back at home, Chidinma continued her act. She pretended to be supportive, asking how the interview went and if there was anything she could do to help. Obinna was too flustered to notice her carefully concealed smirk. A few days later, the final blow came. The UK Home Affairs sent a formal letter denying Obinna's application and placing a 5-year ban on any further applications. Worse, they informed him that his current visa was under immediate review, pending possible deportation for fraudulent activities. Obinna was devastated. He tried to appeal, but the process was long, costly, and unlikely to succeed. In his frustration and panic, he lashed out at Chidinma, accusing her of sabotaging him. "You did this! I know you did!" he shouted, his eyes wild with anger. Chidinma remained calm. "I did what any woman would do, Obinna," she replied coldly. "You betrayed me, lied to me, and plotted behind my back. You brought this upon yourself." Desperate, Obinna reached out to Adaora for help. But Adaora, feeling the sting of betrayal herself, had no interest in aiding him. Instead, she released a series of incriminating voice notes and messages to the public, confirming everything Chidinma had already sent to the Home Affairs office. Now, Obinna was not just facing immigration issues. His reputation was in tatters, both in the UK and back home in Nigeria. As the days passed, things went from bad to worse for Obinna. His lawyer informed him that there was very little they could do to reverse the decision. His savings dwindled as he tried to fight the inevitable. Meanwhile, Adaora began to face her own consequences. Her community in Nigeria, disgusted by her involvement in the scandal, ostracized her. She lost her job, and her reputation was tarnished. Chidinma, on the other hand, began to find a sense of peace. She was still heartbroken by the betrayal, but she knew she had done the right thing. She had protected herself, made sure the truth was known, and ensured that Obinna would face the consequences of his actions. But the story was not over yet. As Obinna's situation became increasingly dire, he made one last desperate move. He pleaded with Chidinma for forgiveness, promising to change, to be a better man if only she would help him clear his name. He even went so far as to suggest they start over, to forget everything that had happened. Chidinma looked at him, her face unreadable. Would she give him another chance, or would she deliver the final blow that would seal his fate for good? What should Chidinma's next step be? Chidinma stared at Obinna, her expression calm but firm. She had heard his pleas, his promises, his desperate attempts to turn back the hands of time. But she knew better. She had seen the deceit in his eyes before, felt the sting of betrayal, and tasted the bitterness of his lies. Forgiveness is a powerful thing, but trust, once broken, is hard to mend. She took a deep breath and replied, "Obinna, I once believed in you with all my heart. I thought we could build a life together, a future full of love and happiness. But you destroyed that dream with your lies and your schemes. You made your choices, and now you must live with the consequences." Obinna's face fell. He knew, in that moment, that he had lost her for good. Chidinma continued, "I won't stand in your way, but I will not help you either. It is time for you to face the truth and accept the consequences of your actions." With those words, she turned and walked away, leaving Obinna in the silence of his regret. Over the following weeks, the full extent of Obinna's actions came to light. The UK Home Affairs proceeded with the deportation process. His appeals were rejected one after another, and he was eventually given a final date to leave the country. With no allies left, no job, and no hope of clearing his name, Obinna was forced to return to Nigeria in disgrace. Back home, he faced the backlash of his community, his family, and even those he had once considered friends. His reputation was shattered, and his plans for a bright future in the UK were reduced to ashes. Adora, equally disgraced, found herself in a similar position, having to rebuild her life from scratch after her role in the Deceit became known. Meanwhile, Chidinma continued her life in the UK. The storm had passed, and though she carried the scars of betrayal, she was determined not to let it define her. She focused on her work, her friends, and slowly she began to heal. She became an inspiration to many, known for her strength and resilience in the face of hardship. Through her experience, Chidinma learned valuable lessons she wanted to share with others. 1. Trust your instincts. When things don't feel right, listen to your gut. It's often your first line of defense against deceit. Number 2. Stand up for yourself. In a relationship or in life, never let someone else's betrayal make you doubt your worth. Stand up for yourself, even when it's hard. 3. Actions have consequences. Every action we take has consequences, and deceit never leads to true success. What is built on lies will eventually crumble. 4. Find strength in yourself. Hard times will come, but they don't define you. Your response does. Find your inner strength and know that you are capable of overcoming anything. Chidinma's story is a reminder that while life may not always be fair, how we choose to respond can change everything. Dear viewers, thank you for watching this story in the African Folktales Journal. I hope you enjoyed this tale of twists, turns, and the power of truth. Remember, every story has a lesson, and the greatest lessons often come from the most unexpected places. If you have thoughts on Chidinma's choices or what you might have done differently, please share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to like, share this video with friends, and most importantly, subscribe to the African Folktales Journal for more intriguing and life-changing stories with valuable lessons. Stay tuned and see you in the next story.